Let's get started by raising and pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a matter of because we need all the help we can get, and because there's a church right above our heads, I'd like the pastor to read invitation.
Shall we pray? Our gracious God and Heavenly Father, we do thank you for this opportunity to gather together this morning to discuss the business of the schools. We thank you, Heavenly Father, for the school board who has so diligently labored to make presentations for us. We just ask, Lord, that you would give us wisdom and understanding that we might make clear decisions on what to do as a town. We ask your blessing now in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Showed up to the pancake breakfast, isn't it? Oh. This is a school district deliberative session. We're going to start things off just by asking the people at the front of the table to introduce themselves so we know who's there.
Ken Gary, school board member. John Waller, school board member. Todd Lapierre, school board member.
Andrew Robbins, school board chair.
Steve Wilford, superintendent.
And we have also from there. We also have some budget committee members here. Can you identify yourself? Anyone else? All right. We have the district clerk. We have some guests from Middleton, is that right?
Diane Carlson, I'm the Effingham representative here for 14 years.
I'm Jack Cooper from the Governor School Board too. I'm talking about a representative. I've been on the board for 20 years, and hopefully I can have some questions to say about it.
And can I ask for a brief show of hands, all those here who are not registered voters in the township? Counters, can you read some of that? Or if I can get you to move to this side of the sorry.
Gotta have balance.
A great turnout.
I do pay taxes, though.
A couple of people have asked me about the videotaping. It's actually being done by the town. Joe Bailey is doing it. My selectman is doing it. As a matter of law, anybody can report on these subjects. The tape recorder sitting there right in the front table. So we all know why we're here.
Pancake breakfast.
We voted back in 1995 as a town to, on the school side, to become what's known as an SB2 town. And so instead of, like we do on the town meeting side, post a warrant and all get together on a Saturday morning in March and vote then and there on budget articles, we instead have a deliberative session in which we discuss those articles, potentially amend those articles, and then those articles go on a ballot, voted on at Election Day in March. So what we're here to do this morning is to read through the warrant, the articles on the warrant that the school board has put forward, to amend them to a certain extent, if we wish, and then essentially deliver that warrant to the voters in March. One note, there's some limit as to how much we can amend them. We can amend them, the amount of money in them. We can't do a whole lot more. We can attempt to amend some of the language, but some of the language is prescribed by law. So I'm going to try to help guide you so that whatever you send to the ballot in March is in fact legal. Is that, everybody clear on all that? More or less, kind of, sort of? We'll have a practice article here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the article. I'm going to ask for a motion to consider the article as read. A second. All those in favor will consider the article, and we'll open up for discussion. Right? Just like we do in town meeting. And we'll discuss as long as you want to discuss. Please have all questions come to me. And then if there's amendments, you can make an amendment. You need a second. You can have a discussion of that amendment. Then we would vote on that amendment. And then what I'd like to do is then have us all, once we finish discussing an article, agree by vote that that's the wording of the article that we're going to send to the voters. Now, strictly speaking, in some cases, that vote isn't necessary. But what it signals to us is that now we've finished talking about that one, and we're going to move on to the next one. Does that sound fair? Sound good? All right. Terrific. So, Article 1. We choose, let me have one last order of business. Am I to understand that the warrant, the articles on the warrant, have been duly posted in places in town? Yes. I know I saw it. And the budget? Yes. Yes. Okay. And you all have copies of the materials you want to need. Okay, great. So we'll do practice with Article 1. Choose the following school district officers. One school board member for a 3-year term, one moderator for a 1-year term. Anybody, any takers, let me know. One clerk, 1-year term, and one treasurer, 1-year term. So do I hear a motion to consider that article as read? All those in favor? Aye. Okay. So for discussion, is there any amendments on that article? Anybody got any questions about that article? Y'all good? All right, so do I hear a motion to send that article to accept that article for the warrant as read? Yeah, all those in favor? Aye. All right. Article 2. It's the real deal. Shall the Middleton School District... Yeah, excuse me. Yeah.
Somebody...
Oh yeah, right. For the clerk, when you make a motion or second, please state your name so that we have it appropriately in the minutes. Okay. Shall the Article 2? Shall the Middleton School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $6,592,500 gross budget for the construction and original equipping and furnishing of a new school building located on Kings Highway and Ridge Road for the purpose of educating Middleton students in grades preschool through 6th grade, and authorize the issuance of not more than $6,592,500 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the municipal officials to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and determine the rate of interest thereof. Furthermore, to raise and appropriate up to the additional sum of $46,795 for the purpose of making the initial bond payment. This amount may be offset by any interest earned on bond proceeds that is transferred to the general fund on or before June 30, 2015, and to further authorize the school board or to take any other action necessary to carry out the vote, including the acquisition and/or conveyance of any necessary utility equipment to support the project. This article shall only take effect if Article 6, pertaining to the withdrawal of area agreement with the Farmington Area Schools, and Article 5, pertaining to the tuition agreement with Governor Wentworth School District, are also approved. The school board recommends this article 5-0. The budget committee recommends this article 7-0. And when we vote by ballot in March, 3/5 vote, ballot vote, 3/5 will approve. Do I hear a motion to consider this article as read?
Can you say still?
Do I hear a second? Okay, we don't even vote on that. Now let's open for a discussion. Do I hear any questions?
I thought that the first bond payment was 160 or 170,000, not 46. $47,795.
Your amendment to address that. So the question was, the questioning was the first interest payment was, right?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the $46,795 to $210,450.
And what would the tax impact be on Article 2?
Okay, so hang on a second.
Okay.
So I have a motion on the floor from Todd to amend the $46,795 figure to $2,000 what, Todd? $450. I need a second on that motion.
I'll second.
I'll give it a
Let Andy.
Okay, Mary Bell seconds that motion. Okay, so now we're going to discuss that proposed amendment, and I heard a question.
What would the tax impact be on Article 2?
Okay, so you're looking for the tax impact of the entire article,
Of the Article 2?
of Article 2. So what I want to do is talk about the amendment that we have on the floor, the specific amendment to change 46 to 10, right, before we go back to the whole article. I'd entertain a friendly amendment, sure.
Friendly amendment. We also need to strike out the word up.
If both Todd and Andrea are okay with that, the amendment would be to change the wording there, to raise and appropriate, not up to, but raise and appropriate the additional sum of $210,450. So let me just guess at what might be out there. Why are we amending this? What are we upping this amount of money? That's a good question.
So the number that we had there originally was based on a traditional loan interest rate. Amending it to, that'll be the first year's bond interest rate payment, and also a $20,000 fee for acquiring the bond.
If I could add to that, the original amount that we had in there during the process of going through proposing this warrant article was based upon a USDA loan, which you will hear about later on. There are different financing mechanisms that can be done, and that would be at the discretion of the board. We'll obviously be looking at trying to get the best financing plan available to the district in the interest of the taxpayer. In the process of doing that, we also are aware of the municipal bond bank has a different set of terms. So to keep things open as to which way we want to go, we need to choose the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is what the motion is on the floor right now, and that's for the 200, 210, 200, 450. And that provides the assurance that the school board will be able to negotiate and get the appropriate terms in a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Would this be an appropriate time to explain the workings of acquisition of a bond and how they function?
Well, for better or worse, we've gone right into the detail of this specific amendment. So we're going to try to keep the conversation about this amendment, vote this amendment up or down, and then we'll pull back and we'll talk about anything we want to talk about with the article in general. Yes.
Why would you want to take out the words up to? If it's less, I would like the amount to be less.
I would have to refer to the attorney.
Because the Department of Revenue Administration requires that you appropriate a sum certain. It's not an up to. You can't choose how much you're appropriating. You need to know how much you're appropriating. And it needs to be a sum certain. And regardless, whether up to is in there or not, they're going to raise and appropriate that amount of money. The point is that it's surplus language and it could be confusing. It could cause problems in the department.
Yes.
So, in reality, that figure, well, we don't say up to, that figure could vary from, say,
Is that a question?
Yeah, that gives them,
So the question is,
negotiating room.
the question is, in reality, could this figure that's actually paid out, not raised, appropriate, but actually paid out, could vary between those two figures, Todd? Is that right?
you're telling me it can be as low as 46,000, because that was not what was said at the meeting.
It could be, depending on the financing that we obtain. But right now, talking to the USDA, the first year's payment, based upon how much money we would spend during the first year, which would begin July 1, and that would be for architectural engineering services. And moving forward into the next year, which would actually include site work and breaking ground in April and May, we in fact could incur up to $700,000 or $800,000 in expenses. Using a traditional USDA type loan, which is similar to a construction loan in the home, we use a 7% interest rate, which is very high right now, as a safety margin. That's what it comes out to. Again, we're going to get into the different types of terms of loans and things that are available to the school board. We can go ahead and secure that funding. But again, we really want to make sure that in the event we need to go to municipal bond, that we have that capacity to do that. And in fact, it would be the first year, $210,000. We want to be very clear about that. That is a very distinct possibility. I would also like to add in the fact that in the appropriating budget in an aggregate, in comparison to last year and this year, there is going to be a reduction both between the SAU and our operating budget as proposed, a reduction of $125,000. Okay, so if we take things in the aggregate, look at the whole document, what's going to be spent this year, you can take and offset that 210 with $125,000 and end up with a net result. That result will be that much more than last year. I hope I said that clearly. I'll be more than happy to repeat it again.
Yes.
So if it's less, where does that extra money go to?
Right, so if it's not 210, if some amount below there, where does the money go to?
That money would not be expended, it would carry over to the next year to the unreserved fund balance. It would be used to offset next year's taxes in regards to funding. We have to raise that much less.
Yes.
Now, the way I'm reading it, this will come out of this year's taxes. It's $210,000 will come out of this year's taxes. And I'm going to just get into it. And the other one won't come out until next year's taxes, the $6 million figure. That way I'm reading.
Whatever the bond payment is, that amount would start to come out that following year.
So
Depending upon the type of financing, again, if we go with a USDA loan, the construction loan, so to speak, would continue on, and we'd be making interest payments as we draw money off to construct the school. If we go with a conventional bond bank approach, it will be a flat rate bond payment cost, depending on the terms are that we establish, 20-year or 30-year.
So just to clarify his question, he's saying the 210 will be raised and appropriated in this tax year.
Correct.
And the balance of bonds in future years?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Lou.
Do I understand that you're gonna $10,000 that you're gonna build a school for 110 children?
No.
You're gonna build a building?
No. I think that the question was that $210,000 is not building the school. It's, can you clarify exactly what the $210,000 is that we're talking about?
Interest on the borrowed, that's the interest on the borrowed bond of the $6 million, $6.5 million, that's the interest for the year.
Did any bids or anything like that before the drywall, required partnerships and that?
No, everybody in the school needs to decide whether they want to do it or not.
$50 an hour, you know, and it's only 1 hour to do it.
All right, let me keep the discussion on the amendment. Any other questions about the amendment going from 46 to 210,000? Yes, sir, in the back.
So the 210 is, most of that is a one-time expenditure just to, basically like closing costs on a home mortgage or something, and we could look at it that way. It's a-
There,
Most of that is a one-time expenditure the first year.
A conventional bond, municipal bond bank, when it gets closed, typically get closed this summer, we would get transferred into an account $6.5 million. Because we would have that amount, interest on that money only, interest only, is this value for the first year. And it's the following year, you start making regular payments. So it's an interest only for that amount of money for the first year.
And so it's fair to say that in ensuing years, that bond payment will include principal and interest like any mortgage, correct? Does that answer your question? Yes?
Just to clarify, it will still be high each year. It goes down a little bit, but if you go through the bond bank, you're still paying like $160,000 a year interest. So your amount is still going to be high. It goes down a little bit each year for however long you take out the bond, 10, 20, 30 years.
Right, I see a member of the school board nodding his head, agreeing with your statement that it's still high interest. Other questions on the proposed amendment? If you'd like to vote on that amendment, we'll still be able to talk about this article. You can ask any questions you want about this article. Would you like to vote on this amendment? Hold up, all right. So all those in favor of amending Article 2 to read, furthermore, to raise and appropriate the additional sum of $210,450 for the purpose of making the initial bond payment. This amount may be offset by any interest earned on bond proceeds as transferred to the general fund on or before June 30, 2014. All those in favor of that amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
The amendment carries. So now we're discussing Article 2 as amendment. Are there any questions about Article 2? I remember a question about the tax impact of Article 2. Do we have an answer to that question at all? What other questions are there while they're calculating that? Yes, sir.
Just to go back to this amendment, just talk about it at length, that it's the first year's interest. And the wording in here, it says, for the purpose of making the initial bond payment. We won't make an initial bond payment until the following year. So is the language not quite correct?
I'm going to ask the attorney to weigh in on that, if that's all right.
Well, it's a payment, it's the payment that's due on the bond, which is the interest for the first year. So that's so the first year you pay as Gary indicated to you pay simply the interest. You may be familiar with this. It's not that dissimilar from a mortgage. In that when you get a mortgage, you have to pay upfront the interest in the month that you close, and you pay that interest then, and then you don't make a payment for another month afterwards, and then you're paying principal and interest at that point in time because you're borrowing the money. So this first bond payment is simply interest. In the second year, you will pay interest and a principal payment, and it will be for the full year for the borrowing of the money. This is interest on half the year, so the interest will be higher, and there will be a principal payment as well, so that will be higher as well.
So that language then is okay?
Yes, the language is fine.
Are you ready with the answer on the estimated tax impact?
The estimated tax impact, and this is impact based on the current town's assessed valuation of $162 million. Those who are not aware, we did have a reduction in our overall assessment. We went from 184 on down. Right now, based on the new assessed valuation, we're talking about $1.30 per thousand. So you take your assessed value of your home, you're at $150,000. You take, multiply $1.30 by 150, and that would be your individual tax.
And what's the tax, that what are you saying that tax impact is derived from? What number, what amount?
The amount we just amended, $210,450.
This year, okay, so,
This year.
right. So your question was a little different, am I right?
Yes, because when I looked at the bond repayment schedule, at $170,000 being your first interest payment, the tax impact was $3.80. So I don't quite understand how you get $1.30.
Right, so the $1.30 was the tax impact of the $210,450. And so
Taking
I
the
think
bond
what
out.
you're looking at is what's, how much more will my school taxes be or my
No,
overall
I just want
taxes?
to know Article 2.
Article 2, okay.
Article
Do we have an answer to that?
Sharon, are you looking at this document here?
No, I had a bond printout for 10, 20, and 30 years.
Yeah.
And at a 4.5% interest at the bond, I don't know, Todd had said it at a meeting. The tax impact was going to be 3.8 at $170,000 being the first
That
payment.
was principal and interest.
That's the second condition.
That's second. This is interest only for the first year.
Okay, so with interest only at 210, it's $1.30. So in the second year, it would be principal and interest, which would then probably triple, would be my guess. Okay, I'm fine. Thank you.
Yes.
Does anybody know how much our town taxes went up so that we can know to add this on the top in total?
Yeah, at this point, we don't know what will happen on the tax side because personally, I'm looking back at the selection back there. Oddly enough, it's fighting. Until town meeting, you don't know what your tax impact for this year is going to be. Nobody in the room could say specifically. Any comments from the budget committee on that? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to know, you say our impact is $1.32, and next year probably be $3. But what is the difference between when we pull out of that school down there, Farmington, compared to what we're going to be paying for? I know they charge us 7% every year on their budget. That's why our taxes go like this. I would like to know, if and when we pull out of Farmington School, what's the impact on that? How much does that help us on the budget?
Anybody willing to try to characterize the difference between the overall school budget as of today versus what it would be if Article 2 would pass, and that presumes that the other articles relative to withdrawal pass.
Yeah, it might not be $1.32, might be 32 cents. We don't know.
We have, there's 3 interlocking articles on this year's warrant. Article 2, which is the bond. We have Article 5, which is the tuition agreement with Governor Wentworth. Article 6, which is the withdrawal plan. When I say they're interlocked, what that means is that all 3 need to pass for any one of them to proceed. If one does not pass, they all fail. What we do have is, in response to Roger, we do have some information that we're going to present during Article 6, which is the withdrawal plan, which is probably in the hierarchy is what's driving and causing Article 2 and Article 5, the bond, Governor Wentworth tuition agreement, to be in play, and that's why they exist. So I'd like to suggest that we do the presentation that we have during Article 6, withdrawal plan, to probably try and help everybody digest everything.
All right, so what I'm hearing is it's too complicated. More information will be coming later this morning. And at the end of the day, we're not voting on this article this morning. morning were discussing whether or not to amend the proposals. So we might be able to get closer to the answer to that question later on in the meeting, is that what you're saying?
You're gonna get a very close answer to it.
Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah.
Look at the picture up there, and every classroom is 1,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet is better than 32 by 32. That's an awful big classroom. And if that size was cut down, you can cut that 6.5 meters.
If you cut down the classroom size, yes.
Yeah, because the student population is dropping throughout the whole state. It's dropping. Just like Middleton is dropping, the student population. For instance, what do we have right now for preschool?
I think we have a number of about 8 students in the preschool right now, at preschool level.
And what about,
So the size of the classrooms are pretty much dictated by state education regulation. They may have a certain square footage per student. That is meeting the minimum requirement of that. The reason why we do that is because although right now there's no New Hampshire school building in it, if in fact it does come into play, we want to make sure we have a facility that meets those requirements so that it provides the school district the opportunity to turn around and make application after the construction project is done, to be able to claw back, obtain those building aid funds. Middleton, in the ranking, can really benefit possibly up to 50% of the cost of the school building, with 80% of that up front. And that has to do with our valuation per student and our average or median household income. So we want to make sure that this construction project goes forward, that we're doing it in the interest of the taxpayer, to make sure that we have all the ability to go forward, take all the resources we can from the state level, of which we are entitled to, do not have a school.
you said it's a minimum number of students.
It's
That's
a
1,000 square feet. So how many students is that per classroom?
It's a class size, it provides utilization of up to 25 students. It varies depending on the grade. The higher grades you get, you can actually have up to 30. The state does not recommend that. They encourage everybody to strive for 25 in your grade 6. When you get to your lower grades, they recommend that you strive for 20 per classroom, although you're allowed up to 25.
Just a quick question. Will this school be an accredited school when it's finished?
Good question. Will this school be an accredited school when it's finished?
On the elementary grades, that was not the intent that has been discussed. We certainly would be happy to discuss it. I know Rochester, for instance, has moved forward with a middle school, getting it accredited. Most school districts are typically accredited at high school level. I'm not sure if there's that many that are accredited at the middle or elementary school level, but I do know Rochester is not.
So maybe this is a relative question. Is the school building that we're talking about that would be funded by Article 2, does that envision the potential, is it good enough that it could be accredited if that was sought out?
From the physical plant side, yes, absolutely. But accreditation encompasses as well staff and whole local things, curriculum and all that. But from the physical plant side, yes.
Yes, Lou?
So in other words, you're intending, when someone that's graduated from college, they get some kind of certificate, right? You get claimed it right off.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that, Lou.
Some of them, Farmington just had a certificate, you know, a degree.
Right, so,
Do that, but that's not the proper way to go.
other questions or comments on Article 2? Yes.
How long is the bond going for? 10, 20, or 30 years?
How long is the bond going for? Do you know that?
No, we do not know at this time. It depends on how we want to go. Again, the school board will be looking at a variety of different loan packages. And again, we're going to be looking at trying to work out the best financing approach.
No, okay, no disrespect, But I would think at this point, you would know how you're going and would have answers. And we're voting on blind faith when we don't even know if we're gonna pay this amount for 10, 20, 30 years, or how, you may go USDA, you may go bank, you may go bond. I just feel at this point, you should have answers so that we can be educated enough to make the decision. And really, no disrespect.
We have to vote first. They can't go to the USDA or else and say sell stuff.
You can go to the bond bank with an idea.
Through the moderator, please.
Oh, sorry.
Right, no, getting back and forth. So let's see if we can get an explanation of why we are at this point in terms of the bonding process. Can you guys help us understand briefly why we are where we are in the bonding process?
Typically, you have to bring it to a vote of the community. The community has to say, yes, we want to build a school. At that point, that brings you to the opportunity to make application to the bond bank. Or another avenue is the USDA loan. We have, examples, amortization charts, things you can get on bank rate. We can speculate on all the different terms. But when it comes right down to actually executing the loan, or the bond, securing it, those terms, that is when, at that point in time, that they're going to be secured.
So I hear the question looking for a certain amount of certainty, and the one certainty you can say is, if this passes, $210,450 will be raised and appropriated in year one for a bond payment which will constitute all interest. Outside of that, there's no grade or certainty in terms of the length of the bond or so forth. Is that right? Is that fair?
That's correct.
Okay.
You don't.
All right. I've got a number of hands up. I'm going to go right here. This gentleman.
You can't get approval until you get the vote. Every bank says, well, the bond bank or whatever, it's going to say, have your voters approved this? If you say no, they say, call it back once you get it. So you can't have certainty on it.
All right. The other hand's going to go back to the back here first.
And not only that, there are costs that are associated with the application, I believe, especially with the bond, I believe. So why would we want to spend money to apply for a bond that the people haven't approved and throw that money down the drain? And it's quite expensive to do that.
Okay. Yes.
So, we want to be educated voters. So when we go in March to vote, if today we agree to, on this article this warrant article going to the vote, when we vote, we have to think worst case scenario. I mean, we have to go and vote. Am I willing to pass this article with the possibility of it being at the high end? That is what, that's my question.
Right. So the question is, if we go forward to vote in March on these articles, the only thing, if we want certainty, we kind of got to think worst case scenario from a financial standpoint, right?
Yeah.
I see nodding heads in affirmation. And so when you calculate $210,450, that's the worst case scenario. And first year, that's what will be raised and appropriated because that's what the vote will say, even if it doesn't spend. Right? Yes.
Okay, okay, if this is approved and everything, when we all go to the vote in March, do we have another meeting on the bond hearing, or do we just accept whatever the school board decides on?
Well, that's a great question. So if this article passes in March, what's the next step, and is there any opportunity for public input on the specific terms of the bond?
The next step is that we would go to the municipal bond bank and USDA vote and make it known that we did pass the vote. We would go through the application process. As far as any further decision-making on the part of the townspeople at a bond hearing or post-bond hearing or something like that effect, none of that is play. That vote consistently providing community input for anybody that comes to our meetings. It's a fine item on all of our agendas now for the past 2 years. We are always opening up late. We've even, the chair has opened up before the meeting, after the meeting, on the preponderance of all the meetings we've had for the past half a year. So if you want to come to the meetings, we're more than happy to have you come.
Right. So if I hear this right, there's no actually public vote on the terms of the bond, but the decisions on those bonds are made in public at a school board meeting, and those school board meetings would make provisions for public input, is that right?
In my opinion, I want to know as a taxpayer too. You know, I pay property taxes, I want to know. I want to know, I'm willing to bet everybody else in the room wants to know. We have to share this information, what's going to happen. I know I need to make my preparation, my own personal budgets. I'm sure everybody in this room needs. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We'll make sure everybody has the information.
Okay, other questions or comments on Article 2? Yes, ma'am.
Just one more quick question. If we're voting to allocate $200,000 some odd dollars, when it could actually be lower, you know, down to the third floor range, stuff, but still it could. We're voting in that 210,000. Our taxes are going to be based on that 210,000, when it could actually be $46.
$46.
Well, 46,000.
Still stands to your point.
Right. My question is, do we really want our taxes to be that high if we're not expending the 46,000 or 43,000?
Yes, in fact.
If that's the case for this year, it'll be put over to next year's, so whatever's left over will be put over to next year's, and next year's tax rate will be lower.
Like, if I could just clarify, it doesn't necessarily mean the tax would be lower, but it would mean that there would be less fundraising usually done by the selectmen. So whatever's left over would reduce the amount of money needed to fundraise based upon next year's budget. I do want to just add a little note that, again, we understand, everybody heard it loud and clear, this warrant article has a tax impact standalone $1.30 per thousand. But I just want to indicate that assuming that nobody stands up and increases the subsequent warrant articles as proposed, no, it's going to happen. That the next two articles, couple articles coming up that do appropriate monies are our operating budget, which has a reduction of $105,668 from last year, and the SAU budget, which shows a reduction of $20,153. Which gives a total of $125,791 reduction, or 78 cents per thousand. So if you take the money articles, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4, and total them up, there'll be a 52-cent increase per thousand.
So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. For this current tax year, the net increase based on the operating budget appropriations and SAU appropriations and so forth would be 52 cents per thousand. So that because of operating lower taxes on the operating budget and the other articles, that $1.30 net of that $1.30 back to be 52 cents for this year. Is that right?
Plus those three articles.
Does everybody get that? I barely get it.
But this article is $1.30.
Right.
As we're discussing it now on the floor.
That's a mistake on that part, because you have $6.5 million too, which is going to go into next year's budget. So that is more than, for this year, it's $1.30. But for the whole article, it'll be $3 or something.
Right, as you said.
As you
For subsequent years, correct. Subsequent years,
Yeah.
correct.
So you can't just say this article is a dollar.
Well, I think what Ken's trying to say is that this article, if you want to say how much of our tax rate will be driven by this article next year, the answer is $1.30.
But next year?
This year,
$3.
yeah. But the point he just tried to make was for this year, the net, if all the articles, appropriations are approved, would be 52 cents. Your point was that, yeah, but the following year, there would be additional increases because of additional bond payments.
Right. So it'll wind up, so the whole article really, in reality, includes next year's budget because of that $6.5 million. Everything included.
This is for school year 14, 15, not 15, 16, right?
But we're approving the $6.5 million, they won't be paid.
July 1st.
Right. Which is next year's budget.
I think it's fair to say that you're making a decision that will affect subsequent years. Right?
Yes.
Okay, I got here and then I'm going to go back there, yes.
Then I'm a little confused on this page that gives you the 13, 15 as the total impact of 312, which Article 2 is now changed from 171,000 to 210, so add another, say, 20 cents. This says that your taxes will go up $3.32 on top of whatever the town and school portion is. So where do you, now I'm a little confused.
All right, so can you clarify that?
But it doesn't say that your taxes are going up, it says that your tax rate is going up.
The tax.
And as I indicated earlier, they had a issue of this year, overall valuation went down 22 to 24 million. And when the overall valuation of the town goes down, even if you expended the same amount of money, the tax rate will go up.
The difference between, so to maybe clarify, the difference between the tax rate and the actual taxes, correct?
So you're including what the town and tax rate is going up plus is in this? I'm confused now. Are you confused?
Well,
You're
I don't
giving
know
me a
what's on that
confused
piece
look.
of paper.
And I'm looking at you.
That when I'm confused, everybody's confused. So it seems to me, can you provide any clarity about any differences between this piece of paper and projected tax impacts and what we just been talking about?
And this includes all this.
Take another stab at it. Right. Yeah.
So the local equalized valuation dropped by about $24 million. That's all of the valuation of the community, which causes the local rate to go up by $1.46.
Okay, let me see if I get this right. So what you're saying is that the amounts on here include the increase as a result of the lower valuation.
Correct.
All right, so let me see if I can explain this. Don't Jackie. So, my house was assessed at $200,000, but they did a reval, now it's assessed at $100,000. So my tax rate is higher, but I'm paying based on less value. And so all of our houses were reassessed in the last year. And overall, the whole town's valuation has been reduced. So that means that although we're paying less taxes, the tax rate has gone up. So the figure on this includes the increase based on the lower valuation of all of our homes.
So this
Does that make sense?
332 is going to include the reevaluation, all the articles, plus whatever the town is going to accumulate. Am I doing that
This
right?
is only on the school side.
Right, so this
Right.
is just the school, plus then we will include the town after. So
That's correct.
this is just 332 for the school this year.
And it's 332,
So you have to have 210 to just for this.
332,
That's just got
312,
voted in.
excuse me,
Well,
312.
that's only at 171.
Hang on, so let me see if I can say this, and get everybody to nod their heads. The 312 is inclusive of an increase in the rate, school rate, driven by the lower value of our home, the lower assessed value of
Plus
our
the
home.
articles.
Plus the article, correct.
And
Did we
this,
get that straight?
yes,
Yeah, okay.
that I understand.
Okay.
With the 171 that is on here as appropriated is now at 210, so it's more than the 312. I just threw 20 cents in there, I don't know how much it'll be at
22.
22, okay. I was
24, sorry.
24, okay.
With
Goes up as I speak.
336.
So now it's up to 336, okay.
So if you really want to know what how your taxes are going to be affected, you got to look up your assessment and say, well, how much are they saying my house is worth? So we can all agree that they say it's worth more.
Show self
Yes, back here.
tax bill.
Yeah, but what Manny said about next year, with the rate going